Why is the Arctic interesting to someone like me? And that is, my responsibility is to troll around the world and look for opportunity. And so why would I care about what's going on in the Arctic? Well, to start with, if we were to go to slide 20, we can see that the world that we're living in is a world of low investment returns. It is fundamentally been driven here by central bank policies in a post-crisis world. And the investment opportunities for a large portion of the investment community are becoming more and more challenging in order to meet the investment objectives that our clients have. On slide 21, you can see that infrastructure is one of the great opportunities for the investment community. Returns on infrastructure have historically been much higher with a on balance lower volatility than many asset categories. And given the dynamic of what's going on in the investment community, we are in an environment where we are challenged not only to get returns, but to find the assets that are safe and will match the needs of our investors. Looking at slide 22, just taking one of those sectors, which is the pension fund assets and the need for long-term investment, there is fundamentally a mismatch in the world, and that is that long duration assets or liabilities which have been piling up like pension obligations are being challenged to find long duration assets that have high enough returns. And infrastructure is one area where returns and time horizon match up with the need for this investment segment in particular. When you look at the next slide, which is the institutional appetite in the world for infrastructure, we see that on slide 23 that infrastructure is the fastest growing category in the investor universe today. And how much capital is available? Well, if we look at slide 24, we can see that there's approximately $200 billion per year available for infrastructure investment. So you may say, hey, Scott, that's wonderful. So why are we talking so much about infrastructure today? And that really has to do with the needs of the Arctic. I could stand here and talk to you about resources that are available in the Arctic. If we look at slide 4, we can see that 22% of the world's undiscovered oil and gas reside in the Arctic. This is not news to most of the people that are sitting here. When you look at something like oil production in the Arctic, based on statistics available from the government of Norway on slide 5, we can see that the potential for oil production in the Arctic to increase dramatically is ever present. And when we look at other mineral extraction in slide 6, we can see that there's a huge amount of wealth in the Arctic. However, I'm not here today to talk to you about the need for capital for oil extraction or natural gas or other natural resources. But what I am here to talk about is the safe development of the Arctic. We know from the Rosneft experience that we should all be familiar with that there are opportunities in the Arctic, and those opportunities will be pursued. The need is for us to move in a way which is responsible, that can lead to the safe development of the Arctic, which is primarily focused on the protection of the environment and also on the protection of the rights and the economic advancement of the indigenous peoples. When you look at the ice cap on slide 8, we can see that the trend has been down. All of you know this, I'm sure. What I challenge you to do is look at this trend in your minds and realize where that line will be in 10 years or in 20 years, not today. Because when we talk about doing infrastructure and the development in the Arctic, we are talking about where that line is in 10 years or 20 years, not right now. Because if we do not make the necessary investments in the Arctic now, when that time comes, we will be unprepared to deal with the risks to the environment and to the irresponsible development in this part of the world. When you look at something like slide 10, you can see the major impact, perhaps, just alone on shipping in the Arctic, in that it reduces shipping time dramatically by using the Arctic sea routes, in some cases as much as a half. And that will lead to slide 13, which is the pressing need for infrastructure in the Arctic. So I'll stop there, Scott, with my discussion, but I would like to sum it up in terms of just to make the point that when I look at the Arctic, when I look at the business opportunities of the Arctic, I see an opportunity for investors like me to do well by doing good, by taking and leading the world to a responsible development of the Arctic, by getting the investment in place today for the infrastructure which will allow us to safely navigate the future, to protect the environment, and to advance the causes and rights of the indigenous nations. So, Scott, I'll be happy to take your attack later.
All right, thank you.